And then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and Angela is going to be able to monitor the chat, or feel free to jump in. We're going to be going back and forth, but feel free to jump in with any questions along the way. The goal today is really to help you guys think about events in a different way instead of just one-off things that we do, that it's part of a strategic marketing plan. And when you think about them in the ways that we're going to talk about today, and this whole concept of event personality, you'll get this idea of how it can better fit into your marketing plan. Let me go ahead and hop in here. Okay. As we mentioned in the promotion for this, at the end, there'll be a QR code that you can snap with your phones, which will take you to a page where you can sign up for an interactive PDF event planning guide. It's just this tool that we love to use. It talks about event personality and helps you kind of walk through thinking about the things that we're talking about today as you go about planning your events. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And you'll notice here we talk about event moments, right? There's this philosophy that we have that talks about the power of moments. It comes from a book written by Chip and Dan Heath, oddly enough, called The Power of Moments, that talks about how we have these opportunities, these moments, and that we need to really capitalize on that as we use this in our marketing plan. So I'm going to show you a little video here that talks a bit about that. There we go. You guys can hear it? I can hear it.
Well, psychologists know that our memories of our experiences are not really fair. You know, we don't just take an average of our moment-by-moment sensations when we reflect on our experiences. Rather, we remember snippets, scenes, moments. And in particular, there are two moments that we disproportionately remember: the peak of the experience, which is either the best or the worst moment, and the ending. So when we look back on Disney, we tend to remember the roller coaster moments, the sweet family moments, the surprises, but we don't recall that moment-to-moment sweatiness and irritability. Now, when we talk about creating better experiences for the people we care about, whether that's our customers, our patients, our students, or our kids, what this means is that we're really talking about creating better moments. Great experiences hinge on peak moments. But there's a problem, because we're not trained to build peak moments. We're trained to fix problems. We think that to create better experiences, we take a survey and we collect all the complaints and criticisms and we fix those things. But fixing problems doesn't make people happy.
So that's sort of the premise of where we're going through all of this today. So again, we talk about event personality, and that's going to help and drive all of our event decisions. So Angela, you want to talk a little bit about that?
This is the most critical piece, because when you know your event personality, it helps you determine all the details, what the format of the event's going to be, who the ideal attendee is going to be, the location, and then also your goals. And when you have all those pieces, your event becomes worth it, worth the time you spend planning and being at the event, and the resources, the financial resources, as well as your teams. For example, we had an advisor, or have an advisor, in Texas who came to us in the middle of the pandemic and said, we want to do a client appreciation event in the middle of a pandemic that's worth it. So we put our heads together, we used our event planning guide, we then determined the event personality. And when we determined the event personality, we were able to create a strategic marketing opportunity for them. And that was pretty far and few between in the middle of the pandemic, when everyone's trying to figure out, who's on first. When we did this, we created a strong return on the moment, and the event was worth it. So to dig deeper into that example, the event personality for that event was to connect and celebrate with clients in the middle of a pandemic. So how do you do that? Well, we dug into what the ideal attendee client liked to do. They liked to travel, they liked wine, they liked great food. Okay, so how do you do that all in a pandemic? Well, we created a virtual wine tasting event with Bouchain Vineyards in Napa Valley, California. We created an experience that spoke to the ideal attendee. They had, from the invitation that was very glamorous and personable, they had a kit that arrived at their door with gourmet cheeses from Oregon and the Bouchain wines. Then when they logged on to Zoom, there was a harpist waiting for them. And then they saw the beautiful view of the Napa Valley. Some had visited before, some it was on their bucket list. We then created a customized interactive event. Well, it didn't stop there when we turned off Zoom. The event continued, which is the most important part of any event planning that you're going to do. And if you're going to take one thing away from this whole webinar, it's follow-up. You want to plan your follow-up when you plan your event. So for this event, the follow-up was personalized conversations with the attendees, talking about the wine, talking about if they've been to Napa Valley, if they want to go to Napa Valley, what travel are they going to do after the pandemic? And all of this was put into the CRM, and the advisor used it for future events, for gifts, and they're still doing these events to date. So all of this is very valuable. And when you have the logistics that are supported with the event personality and the goals, you have a strong return on the moment and your event's worth it.
Okay, excellent, thank you. So think about your event personality sort of like this, right? So if you look at this picture, it's pretty much the same dude, right? But by kind of changing the clothes, changing his role, you get very different impressions and think about it as different outcomes of what this event is really all about. So this is what we talk about with event personality. It's the same person, an event, but different personalities. And you'll see on the PDF when you get it, it talks about things like, is it an educational event? Is it a thank you event? Is it a prospecting event? Is it a, we want you to think about these things type of event? So when you're thinking about, gosh, I should do an event, think about our friend here who's, you know, everywhere from Romeo to hard hat project manager, because that event personality comes into play. Sort of the subcontext of all of this too is because it's the same person, it's that event. We also like to talk about this picture and saying it's about ideal client, right? It's when you're planning that event and you're thinking about the event personality, you also want to think about who you want in that room. And we've given this presentation in the past, and we've talked to a lot of people about this, and people have asked us a ton about, well, can I buy a list, right? Like if I want it to be a prospecting event, can I buy a list? And you know, the subtitle of this is making sure that you never have plate lickers and freeloaders again, because ideal client, which is a whole separate webinar that we're not doing today, is about understanding the demographic, which is kind of what you're doing when you're buying that list, the psychographic, their attitudes, who they associate with, what's important to them, and life circumstances. And I think the best way to kind of show why we don't love buying lists is this nice man here. So Earl Bronstein is a man who lives in Florida, and this is actually the cover of his book. And it's The Adventures of a Free Lunch Junkie. Like a lot of these people are coming to those sort of plate liquor, free lunch things because they like big sharp knives and a little creepy and free lunches. So another important takeaway from today, don't buy lists. Don't do the like, well, you live in the right zip code. it's scary. It involves people with knives and stuff, and we don't want to do that. What we do love about this, however, is this whole idea of when you understand your ideal client, there are a lot of things that you can do with your event, like where you're having it, some of the memorable actions that you can do that appeal to this group. Again, we won't really get much into that today, but just whatever you do, remember our friend Earl. I'm sure he's lovely, but most of our advisors don't necessarily want him at our events.
You know, and to sum it up, just like the wine tasting event that I spoke about, when you have a clear picture of your event personality, and then you have clear goals, you have a strong return on the moment, and your event is worth the time and the resources. It's worth it.
Okay.
So the next consideration,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to move to the next slide. Perfect. Your next consideration is how your event personality drives the why of your event. Why are you having this? Are you wanting to educate people? Are you wanting to build relationships? Are you wanting to gain prospects?
You know, when Angela and I started working together, I asked this question a lot, and she used to tease me. And I found this video that kind of encapsulates part of who I am and what I brought to the table.
This
Right?
is actually why we started working together years ago, because in the advisor world and advisor marketing, you just did your events. You never asked, why are you doing the events? And as a result, most events weren't worth it.
Right. So, you know, when we say worth it, I think we need to dig into that a little bit. I'm just making sure I'm looking at my notes. So why and worth it kind of go hand in hand. I can't see you guys, but put a note in the chat if you've ever, when you've put an event together, if you've actually set goals for that event. We find a lot of times people don't. And when they do, they're like big, hairy, audacious goals, which there's nothing wrong with that. But you can't expect one particular moment to really drive the automatic marketing return. Again, this is why we talk about ROM, return on the moment, and not ROI, because events, it's really hard to measure that investment return when you have so many fixed costs. So we work with our clients to really set goals for that, whether it's, and again, that comes from the event personality. Is it, you know, we want 80% of our attendees to bring prospects. We want, when we do a post-event follow-up, we want to make sure that 95% of the people set up appointments with us. You know, there's nothing wrong too if you're saying like we want to throw a client party and we just want people to come and have a good time. We love a good party, and that's a goal. And that is really important because so many times, think about it, you put all this effort into putting an event together and the feedback you get is, oh my God, that was a great party. Like the food was really terrific. But in your mind, it was a marketing opportunity, and they're not talking about like what they learned or that they're excited to talk to you about something else. They're just super excited that they got like a nice picture at the photo booth. So the other part with this goal too is, you know, think about your event planning as being very circular. So as you do that follow-up, not only what you're getting back from your attendees, but it's also helping you plan the next moment. And that also then helps play into what we call the how of your event.
So as we talked about, the event personality drives all decisions. The event personality drives the why of your event, and the event personality drives the how of your event. Think of your how as the logistics. We talked a little bit about this before, but your logistics are executed by your stakeholders. And stakeholders could be everybody from your team to your vendors to your attendees. By understanding your event personality, You know what's important for the planning. And when you have a plan, then your stakeholders have clear roles. When everybody has a clear role, you have success. The clear roles ensure that nobody's stepping on each other's roles. Everyone's going in the same direction, paddling in the same for the same goals. We recommend that you use checklists, and we've created checklists for pre-planning, day of, and post-event. And everybody looks at their checklists and marches in the same direction. And when you do this, the whole event, it goes back to the event being worth it. So you don't really exert any additional time or resources and overlap when everybody has clear roles.
So really kind of encapsulating what Angela said, again, we kind of laugh, we're marketing people, right? Math, not always our strong suit. So trying to kind of create these formulas. So again, it's this knowing your event personality, empowering your team, having good feedback from your stakeholders. You add those two things together, and then you're going to be able to have a quote unquote successful event, because you're going to be able to measure success. This is all pretty kind of high, not even high level, but kind of ethereal sort of stuff. So like Angela was talking about our virtual event, we're going to hop in here now real quick and talk to you guys a little bit about a case study that Angela is going to share with us.
So we bring these up because I think it really buttons what we're saying together into real world examples of events that advisors that we've worked with have done. So this year, we had an advisor that wanted to connect with their female clients. So this is a client appreciation event, paint and sip that we did. And we identified the event personality as connecting with top female clients, not a funnel filler. The goal for this advisor is to really build the relationships with the female clients who are independent clients, divorced, single, widowed, and spouses of top clients, so that they have a voice in the financial planning. So because of this goal to say thank you, to deepen relationships, that was our event personality. And we were able to develop the goals to strategically plan this event. So I'll bring it down into more specific examples. We knew that these ideal attendees, ideal clients, they like small events. So we created a very small event, paint and sip, at a local restaurant. We know that they like accessible venues. So this restaurant was by the freeway. We also know that they liked crafting. And we know all these things because we actually met with them several years prior, had brunch, said we were putting this group together, and we had a flip chart. What do you want? What kind of events do you want? And they ranged from crafting to movies to Education 101. So we knew that they liked all these things. They also liked community. Several of these ladies were friends outside of the advisory firm, but many of them and most of them became friends within the advisory firm community. They also like to bring friends and adult children. We said, as women, we don't go anywhere by ourselves. So the advisor uses this to make the ladies feel comfortable. Bring a friend, bring your adult child. And they loved it. A couple of these are adult children and a couple of them are friends. And these ladies loved fun. And they said they liked fun. So if you look at the picture, this is all intentional. The design of the painting was very colorful. The outfits that were worn were by intent. If you notice, it's all ladies, and then the one gentleman, that's the advisor.
Sorry.
He didn't wear a suit by design. He wore a very colorful, and he happened to have a Picasso-ish like shirt. So that was all intentional. We also then identified the stakeholders. So everyone had a role. There was the event planner, there was the venue contact, there was the painting vendor, and then we had little succulents that said thank you, to just drive home the message that this was just a very social relationship building event. And so when everybody worked together with the event personality, the why, the goals, the how, and off the checklist, the pre-planning day of and post, we were able to have a strong return on the moment. And when we had a strong return on the moment, we achieved our goals and the event was worth it.
Okay. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea and like a very solid kind of way of just one example of how, when you understand the event personality, everything kind of spurs from that. But again, as we talked about, right, we think events and we think about moments. An event itself is not your entire marketing plan. It's a piece of the puzzle, or as one could say, it's the rocks in the stream. So when you understand who you're speaking to and what you want them to do, then you can have these focused rocks. You can have a specific call to action from your event. I just like that. I'm going to play that again. It just makes me happy. You can find different ways to capture this moment, whether it's video, whether it's having a photographer, whether it's having photo booths. You can understand how you can leverage those attendees, not only to drive your business from their own individual spaces, but how you can use them as fans, right? Like by creating, if it's of the ilk and the event, creating hashtags and having photo booths and having things that people can share to show that they were at the event, that they're coming to the event, to kind of generate some interest and curiosity in the space. And then again, as we said, part of this rock too is having a follow-up plan. Angela alluded to the fact that the follow-up plan should be planned in regular planning. How many times can I use the word plan in one sentence? But the follow-up plan also, again, helps you figure out where you're going. And let's face it, everybody kind of needs that direction. You know, one of the biggest complaints we hear from people is, I do all these things, but they don't really seem to all fit together. So think about it as this stream. Think about these moments and these opportunities within the stream. And when you understand your event personality, you're understanding your why, you can understand the how, and then you can focus on these avenues and making sure that the people who are receiving your messages are the people who are going to do the things that you want, so that they're not freeloaders and plate lickers. So with that, if you guys want to grab out your phone and take a picture of this QR code, this will take you to a landing page where you can get that fillable PDF and learn more about how to use that and how some of our other clients have used that. And we can continue the conversation. Before we take questions, we have one more thing that we want to share with you. And you can either take a picture of this, or we will actually send out a registration link in our follow-up. We are going to start doing office hours for about a half hour on Mondays. We know a lot of advisors really like to use Mondays as those sort of strategic planning days. So we're there, the Monday marketing moment office hours. Our very first one will be July 17th. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We know that it's probably a real nice way for our West Coast friends to start their day. So with that, I am actually going to stop sharing the screen so I can see people and we can take some questions. There we go. All right. Hi, everybody. I feel like I just came back in. Does anybody have any questions as it relates to this concept of thinking about events, of having a personality, and how to use that to grow your advisor business? Wow, Angela, I think we're that good, huh?
There's one that I want to bring. There's 3 points that we took from that we mentioned throughout the presentation, and I'd like to just revisit them, is the event personality is such a crucial piece of the planning, which helps with your goals. And so if you don't take anything away from this, determine your event personality, and it doesn't take long. And also, we brought this up earlier, buy a list. And I don't know if you want to expand a little bit more on lists, but everybody, and I'm guilty of it, I'm sure we're all guilty of it over the years, buying lists. Everybody can buy the same list. So don't do it. It's really not going to propel you forward, and not a high return on investment. And I use that instead of return on the moment because it's not a good investment. Elyse, you were holding up something. You want to share with us?
So Angela and I did a little experiment. When we thought about doing this presentation, I kept my eye on my mail and had Angela keep her eye on her mail, and we collected all the invitations that we got in the mail. And this was probably like a 3-month period, so it wasn't like really long.
And this is recent.
Particular one, it's probably going to be backwards. It's a free lunch and learn. This is my favorite one. This actually came from a funeral home because I live in the right zip code and happen to be of the age. It was a little creepy, I have to tell you. I didn't go, but we got. So, we could be like our friend Earl, like Angela and I could be eating really well right about now. So please don't buy lists. There are lots of other ways that we could talk about at another point in time on like, well, how do I then expand this pool if I'm not buying lists? There's a lot of creative and probably more effective ways to do that.
Perfect. Well, we hope you all got a few tips out of this, and we will stay on for a minute or two to answer any additional questions. We hope you'll jump in for our office hours to ask us anything marketing and event related. We are happy to do that July 17th. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.